Have you hugged your library lately? My name is Becky, and I live in Casper, and I'm just nutty about libraries. It all started with this lady who was a librarian 10 years ago at the Cypress Park Library Branch in Los Angeles. My friend Sweet Alice and I were on a mission to visit all 67 branches of the LA Public Library, and Cypress Park was the first branch we visited. When we asked this branch librarian to show us some treasures in her library, she took us out to the library vegetable garden and showed us this artichoke. Sweet Alice and I made it to 55 library branches until we got old and I moved here, but I never stopped visiting libraries. When I moved here nearly 10 years ago, on the first day in town, I got my library card in Fort Bragg, and then I went out and bought a ticket to the crab feed at the Fort Bragg Firehouse. Then I joined Audubon, and then the League of Women Voters. The League is an interesting group of women and men. The League is nonpartisan, but the members love to study political issues and get a real kick out of presenting good governance awards. They study the heck out of issues and take stands, although they never endorse political candidates. So it was no surprise that League members took a position in favor of Measure A on the upcoming ballot. But it was not without thought and study. We discovered we didn't really know that much about our library system outside of Fort Bragg. So we got on the road, and we set out to educate ourselves and find out more about our libraries. Our mission was to find out more about the libraries. We didn't think it was right to ask staff people specific questions about Measure A. We knew if we did our homework, we would find out the answers to our questions. Anyway, here's what we found. Here we are on the first stop in the children's reading room of the Fort Bragg Library. Our libraries are places to go, learn, meet other people. They are places to find answers and art, like this graphic on an interior door of the Fort Bragg branch that shows everything from the skunk train to the osprey to the fish that symbolize so many important parts of our past. And they're places that local people and local neighborhoods love. You only have to look at the care devoted to the upkeep and gardens like this entrance to the Fort Bragg branch. The Friends of the Fort Bragg Library are real heroes in my book. Their good work and generosity saved this beloved library more than once. People in our county are fiercely loyal to their libraries. I know you know the story about how the Fort Bragg Library opened in its current location 1 year, 8 months, 11 days, and 5 hours after the fire that destroyed the former library on the morning of September 20th, 1987. I know you are familiar with that fact, that it moved into the former mortuary in the Kennard Farley building constructed in 1966. Well, I wonder if you know that the first donation to rebuild the library after the fire was $1,000, made 2 days after the fire, from Captain Flint Restaurant in Noyo Harbor. The roots of the Fort Bragg Library grew out of a women's Christian temperance reading room established in 1890 and in a Union Lumber Company library set up in 1910. The collection of both libraries went to the city of Fort Bragg in 1916. And libraries are beloved places, and when we can't go to the libraries, they come to us if we live in the country. That's exactly what the library bookmobile does for many. 26% of bookmobile patrons live more than 30 miles from a branch. And we know 30 miles in Mendocino County is not the same as 30 miles down an 8-lane freeway. The bookmobile now travels 2 days a week, 5 stops a day, 20 different sites during a 2-week run, 300 to 400 miles a week, Anderson Valley to Compche, up and down the coast, across the Highway 1 corridor north of Willits and down Highway 20 to Chamberlain Creek and Parlin Fork conservation camps. Soon to be replaced by a new vehicle, a green machine with a diesel hybrid engine, one of the first of its kind. It was paid for mostly by a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture in support of rural libraries. Here we are in the belly of the bookmobile, looking toward the rear where the children's books live. When we interviewed bookmobile driver Dave Frick, the vehicle was home-based in Ukiah, and that was our first branch stop. Here's Mr. Frick at work behind the books. They're all the books set aside as books on reserve in the Ukiah branch. And we got a look, too, at the bowels of the library in the basement and got a feel for the thousands of books and other materials that pass through this busy branch every day. 12,000 books a month pass across the circulation desk. That's not counting CDs and DVDs and other material. All of this handled by 3.3 employees. Like every branch, the Ukiah Library is a place where people meet and where local artists display their work. When we were there in August, the annual summer library quilt show had been installed, created by members of the local quilt guild, especially for display at the library. Original designs, brilliant work. Take a look. Of course, libraries are places for children, too, and here's a shot taken during a children's program at the Ukiah branch. This is Ina Gordon, a beloved children's librarian with a group of young patrons. There's also a shot of some young patrons participating in an innovative program called A Child, a Dog, and a Good Book that brings children together in the library with books and certified therapy dogs. These animals are calm in the midst of any situation and bring magic into a library. These kids are in the children's reading room in the Ukiah Library with Joplin, the dog. Another child, book, dog reading session with McCloud and Pippin, the wonder dogs. More happy kids and a happy dog. All the kid dog photos were by branch manager Eliza Wingate. In Ukiah, both children's programs and the Kid Dog Book program are victims of budget cuts. We're up north on Highway 101 at the Willits Library. Off 101, you turn east on Commercial Street and go down toward the skunk train tracks just past the old Carnegie Library building at number 85 East Commercial Street. When you go to the Willits Library, the first thing you see when you enter the main reading room is voter registration material. We League of Women Voters really like to see this. Here's the quilt that overlooks the circulation desk, sewn by a patron and donated to the library. There's a pattern here with every branch, and that is a display of some cherished fabric art. More fabric art that overlooks the children's reading room. The children's room on the right is furnished in part by local business people and craftsmen, and the main reading room is the home of computer stations. Willits Library computers are the most heavily used computers in the library system. Patrons come here to book computer time because they don't have access to high-speed internet in many of the homes in the country near Willits. Computers, of course, are replacing the old card catalogs, and the drawers are empty now. Here's the old card catalog near the reference section of the library. Librarian Donna Kerr, a county librarian for more than 20 years, stands next to the locked shelves that contain some of the branch's rare books. Probably the most famous is a book called Genocide and Vendetta by Linwood Karanko and Estill Beard, a history of the Round Valley Wars. Ms. Kerr says every branch has a reference copy. And more treasures. The old card from the Free Public Library of Willits, California says, "This book may be kept 2 weeks unless otherwise designated and renewed once for the same length of time. A 7-day book cannot be renewed or transferred. For overtime, a fine of 5 cents a day, including Sundays and holidays, will be incurred. Injuries to books and books lost must be paid for, and no books will be issued to persons in arrears for fines. This particular book is a bio of Daniel Webster by Benjamin Franklin Tefft. It was published in 1854 in Philadelphia. The accession number is at the bottom of the card, number 3956. At the top is the magazine shelf in the comfortable periodical reading room. Periodicals donated by friends of the Willits Library. This is another thread that runs through all branches. Each branch has its own Friends of the Library. Ms. Kerr says the Willits Library couldn't exist without them. The county pays for the building, power, telephones, and payroll of the 2 full-time staff. Friends recently have paid for all library materials, periodicals, audiobooks, and subscription services, as well as refuse collection and landscape maintenance. One subscription service, which puts 20 new bestsellers into the library every month, costs $5,000 per year. In case you missed it, on your way out of the Willits Library and down Commercial Street, check out number 85 Commercial Street on your way back to Highway 101. Back on the road now, up 101 and over 162. Just before we drive down into town, there's a pullout where you can look down on Round Valley and the town of Covelo. This is a shot taken last May. We appreciate the fact that the Round Valley Library is so nicely located in downtown Covelo, 1 block west of Covelo Road, across the street from the post office, across the street from Legion Hall, down the street from the high school, and across from the Blackberry Festival grounds, the Blackberry Festival being the big summer celebration in Covelo. Here's the exterior of the library building with the entrance and the sign above the front door. All graphics in the building reflect Indian design. The population of Covelo is around 1,200 people, and 37.8% of the residents are Native American, and this town is full of history that needs to be told. Librarian Rachel Borum and volunteers work closely with the local Sustainability Guild. When the card catalog converts to digital, the old drawers will house seeds as part of the seed exchange organized by the Sustainability Guild. A copy of the Friends of the Round Valley Library book, it's a fundraising book, is also on display. The book is called Families, A Pictorial History of Round Valley, 1864 to 1938, by local authors Elmer Bauer and Floyd Barney. It's 1,400 photos. The book has raised $100,000 for the library. The picture at the upper right is the library media room. The electronic gear is behind the camera. This room is decorated with hangings by local fabric artist named John Marshall. Here is John Marshall's piece called The Warrior. Marshall has a studio in Round Valley where he holds workshops on Japanese dye and fabric techniques. He describes his work as dyes made with dirt, bugs, and plants on silk. His works are in books published by the Church of the Divinely Amused Press. He's one of many colorful and gifted artists from the area who display their work at the library. Jack Pinkham's carvings of 6 great Indian chiefs are on 2 totems in the library reading room. Just a word about the Friends of the Round Valley Library. They are a gutsy group of dedicated people who love the community and have decided to make the library the heart of the town. To that end, they have raised more than $1 million over many years to help the library and develop what is known as the Library Commons, which is roughly a town block which will house the public library, a community meeting room, a kitchen, an outdoor patio, and a cafe, with some of the proceeds to benefit the library. There is also an art committee that brings exhibits into the library. And here's the mission of the Friends of the Round Valley Library, a non-profit organization. To expand the library and community services, to initiate and support a full range of educational opportunities, artistic activities, community interactions, and collaborations that encourage community health and sustainability, with the Round Valley Public Library Commons becoming the new heart of our community, bringing together the diverse groups that make up our area. Some of the things they're working on now in connection with the library project are Radio Covelo and a sustainability project. They raise this money through hard work on many grants and many fundraising activities. Now, when you go to Covelo, we hope you take a chance to just look around town because it speaks to the library's place for Covelo people. Here's some local artwork at homes and buildings near the library. The owl graphic is a mural on a building around the corner from the library. We're back over to the coast and headed down south now to Point Arena, home of the Coast Community Library and temporary home during several months of the year to Al. It may possibly be Alice, the Laysan albatross, who has been coming back to the Point Arena Cove for 18 winters. You can usually see Al out with the Point Arena surfers and the water between November and March. Here's the main entrance to the 1928 Mercantile Company building, and you may know the story about how it morphed into the community library through the efforts of Friends of the Coast Community Library and the help of architect Richard Perkins and the inspiration of his wife, Fiona. Richard was in his 80s when he died last spring. Fiona is the poet laureate of Point Arena. This library is as busy as it was on opening day, Friday, November 5th, 2004. It's smack in the middle of downtown Point Arena, and the patrons come from all over the coast, from Walala to Elk, in a sphere of influence that serves many more people than the 449 listed as residents of Point Arena in the 2010 census. There are books and computers and other materials, just like all other branches and education classes, that are a great fit with these coastal patrons. One class is called, Now That I'm on the Internet Superhighway, Where Can I Go? Another one is called Origins of the Human Mind. Another is called The Music of Wagner. Another class is called Finally, Learn How to Knit. Here, from the left, is Julia Lark, branch manager, Alex Levine, current president of the Friends of the Coast Community Library, and Pearl Watts, Friends president during renovation of the library building. They are near the bestseller shelf that keeps current books available for patrons. The beadboard work on library shelves in the main reading room was built by Parlin Fork woodworkers. Here we are in the children's room with the prerequisite library quilts and a computer set up for youngsters. Here's the main reading room. The ship model is a recreation of a Japanese fishing boat that was stranded in the early 1900s in Point Arena. The natives helped the stranded Japanese fishermen, and that act of kindness spawned a continuing relationship between the citizens of Point Arena and the city of Yawatahama, Japan. During our August visit, branch manager Julia was setting up an exhibit about seashells. A patron brought in a contribution to the exhibit during our interview. He was one of several people who came into the library during our visit. Here's the workroom in the rear of the library, and Julia on the right with a new circulation rolling shelf, a great convenience. And one of the many volunteers, Paul Norstrand. Here are some items inside and outside the library, including things left in the old general store when it was purchased by the Friends and converted into the library. The ceremonial fan is a gift from the citizens of Yawatahama. The book drop outside is in its current morph and changes periodically according to the whims and inspirations of local artists. Now, I really mean this. Everybody seems to be smiling when they come into this library. from the people who walk in and ask to volunteer. One lady was wanting to volunteer on her vacation, to the middle school girl at the table in the teenage section, tutored by a volunteer who was teaching her math without the use of a calculator, to librarian Julie, whose interest is in just about everything is manifested on her desk. Here's her desk. Has an antique lamp, computer mouse, rocks, origami, colored glass vase, flowers from the pea family, a cat sculpture, shells, plant specimen, historic calendar, photos, and of course books. Which brings us to the real treasures of the public libraries of Mendocino County. Librarians. These librarians are from homes and schools in Austin and Boston and Louisiana and Denver and Jefferson County, Oregon and Philly and the East Coast and the Bay Area and Reno. They're well-educated, smart, funny, kind, helpful people who choose to live here and be part of their communities. Boy, we're so lucky. Here at the circulation desk in Fort Bragg are librarian Judith in the center, with library technician Ann Reneker on the left and Valerie Fry of the Friends of the Fort Bragg Library on the right. Ms. Fry also serves on the Library Advisory Board for county libraries. Dave Frick in the vehicle, and back at the office at the Ukiah Library. Ukiah branch manager Eliza Wingate says it's the public library's job to create a community of readers. We don't care what people read, she says. The public library is a unique institute, free to all. Melanie Lightbody says her priorities are kids, hours, and books. She says public libraries are places for you to achieve what you want to do, and if you need help, it's our job to provide it. Donna Kerr grew up in Boston, where she spent a lot of time in the Boston Public Library. She says she could go into the library as long as she was well behaved. She could read all day. I felt empowered when I walked into the library, she says. When a group of Willits children recently attended a local program about leadership, they were asked to name heroes in Willits. They listed the librarian, the chief of police, and the mayor, in that order. Rachel Borum greets everybody who enters the Round Valley Library by name. She's the only county employee at the library, and since the library cannot be open unless she's at work, she won't get sick. If I'm sick, I let the whole community down, she says. Branch manager Julia Lark in the children's room here. Julia has a master's degree in botany, and she also has a master's degree in library science. Her professional career has taken her to several kinds of academic libraries, including Otis Art Institute in Los Angeles. She says she enjoys working in a public library because she has wide and diverse interest in many different things. Here's what came out of doing our league homework. Overall funding is down 25% in 3 years for all of our libraries. There's a reduction of 30% of staff in 3 years. State funding is down by 80%, soon to go down by more. Budget cuts reduced the hours when libraries were open this summer from 40 hours a week to 21 hours a week for some branches. The book budget has been cut by 75% in 1 year. Here's the reality. Friends of the various library branches provide more than $60,000 a year to libraries to fill voids in book budgets and materials, but they can't keep this up. The closure of the Willits Library is under review. Total net appropriations under the current budget for county libraries is $1.4 million, with anticipated revenues of $1.3 million. The library district receives no money from the county's general fund. There currently are no reserve library district funds. Our county libraries include 5 branches and a bookmobile that serve 87,000 people in 3,500 square miles. And our library budget, again, is $1.4 million. By comparison, and we're compared a lot these days to Nevada County, California, their public libraries include 3 branches, 2 stations, and a research facility that serve 98,000 people in 957 square miles. That county library budget is $2.2 million. What Measure A will do? It is going to create a sales tax, but not on food and not on prescriptions. That'll cost us about $20 a year for a family of 4. All proceeds from this tax will go toward our libraries for the next 16 years. No other county department will be affected. It will allow our libraries to restore their hours and their services. A few more numbers. There are 48,000 library card holders in Mendocino County. Even though the hours have been reduced, the circulation is up by more than 13%. County libraries have an average of 18 volunteers for every staff member. Thank you, everybody. I hope I see you at the library.